In this tutorial, I'm going to go over some of the essential skills you should know when using Shape Tweens. First, starting with some Shape Tweens involving shapes, then some Shape Tweens involving letters, and then finally some Shape Tweens involving lines. Okay, so once you have your project open, just go down to your layer, double click on it, and name it Shapes. And then on that first keyframe, we're going to go to our oval tool, and I would say just make sure your stroke is off. It doesn't really matter, but just turn stroke off right there and fill it with whatever color you want. So I'm just going to kind of go red, pink there, and I'm going to make my first circle right there. Then I'm going to go to 2 seconds, right click and insert a blank keyframe because it's going to be a different shape. So we're going to go to the rectangle and I'm going to pick a different color, let's say blue, and make my rectangle over there. Then when I click in between, right click and create Shape Tween, we're going to see that it's going to morph from the circle into that rectangle over there. And just like for classic tweens, we can mess with a bunch of other things too. So if you want to change your shape from this shape, just click on the keyframe, go over to your free transform tool, and you can, squish it, squash it, do whatever you want, rotate it, whatever you want. And then you can also, if you are clicked on here, you can go over to color effects and change such things as brightness. So I'm going to just make sure this one's a little bit brighter. So now when it morphs from here to there, it just gets brighter as well. And then also, just like for classic tweens, we can also change the easing in between. So if you click anywhere between your two keyframes and you go to tweening right here under effect, right now it's classic ease, which is just a straight movement. We can mess with any of these over here. So you can go to ease in and out, and I'm going to maybe pick quint right here, which means it's really slow, and then it goes fast and then slow again right there. So just double click. And now when we watch it, it's going to go slow and then fast and then slow. All right, so now let's look at some other ways that we can morph this shape. So I'm going to slide down here, go to 4 seconds, and instead of adding a blank keyframe this time, I'm actually going to insert a regular keyframe, and that'll keep the exact same shape. So if I move this over and then right click in here and just go Shape Tween, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to move it straight across. There's nothing special about that. Actually, I am going to go here and bring this brightness back to normal as well. But since we have the same shape, we can click on the second keyframe, the last keyframe over here, click somewhere else on your stage that's away from your shape, then click V on your keyboard. And when you go to the edge, you're going to be able to click, see that little curve thing? You can click on that and you can morph your shape into something else. So I'm just going to kind of go like that. And then now when we watch it, it's going to morph from that regular rectangle into this other curvy rectangle. But what happens when we want to morph this into a more complex shape? Well, I'm going to go to 6 seconds here, right click and put a blank keyframe again. And I'm going to go to this one right here, Polystar tool, click on that, and just make sure under tool, go down here to style and make sure you're on star instead of polygon, because a star is going to be more complex. We're going to cause it more problems. Change your fill color to yellow to make it a star, and just make your star kind of like that. And I'm going to take this, just kind of move it over here, and I might go here and just kind of rotate it to be kind of straight on like that. And you'll notice now that if we click between, right click and create a shape tween there, it's going to morph. It's going to go from that to the star, but it's going to be really ugly. Just look at this bottom corner right here the whole time. That bottom corner is going to turn into, it actually ends up being this little piece right here, not even the actual corner. So let's look at one more up here. Let's see where that one ends up. You'd think that that would end up at like one of these, but it actually ends up in here. So to help animate out, what we can do is click on the first keyframe of our first shape, like where we start that shape tween, and we can go Control Shift H, and what that does is that adds a shape hint, and we can take the shape hint and put it in a spot that we want to tell Animate, start there, this corner, and I want that corner to end up right there. So you can tell it where to start and end, that specific spot. Then you can go back and go Control Shift H, add another one. So I'm going to add B maybe down here. So when I go back to this one, I can put B down there. Then if I go back, I'm going to add 3 this time. I'm going to go Control Shift H, 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 and I'm going to put E just in the middle here. I'm going to put D up in the top corner and C right here. So I made sure I went around in a circle like this. So when I go back here, I know it's A, B, This should be C, D, E up there. So D right here and C right there. And that should tell Animate that where I want these corners to start and end. So if we watch this now, you can see that it's a much nicer transition because now this corner actually ends up being a corner, and so does this one, and this one, and we've just told this middle here to be the point at the top of the star. Okay, but let's try that again with a shape that we draw ourselves. So I'm going to go over here, right click and insert a blank keyframe again, and I'm just going to go to my brush. I'm going to change the fill to black, and I'm going to try and draw a house. So there's my roof. I'm going to draw this right here. Then I'm going to go to my paint bucket right here, and my house is going to be purple with a green roof. So if I click between, right click, and shape tween, you're going to see that even though I drew this as one shape, it's not actually one shape. Every color for a shape tween has to be its own thing. So green is one shape, it's seeing black as another, and purple as a third one. So it just becomes a complete mess, where it goes from one shape and then splits in part into three and then reforms as the house. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into one shape instead. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to use my paint bucket and go over to my tool, take my fill and make it black for now. So I'm going to fill this all with black, and then just change my fill to, let's make it an orange house. Now when we watch it, it's going to do a decent job now. Right now it kind of did a good job there, but we can do the same thing if we want. I'm just going to do one for the top maybe right here. So Control Shift H, and I'm going to put a new one at the top. So now this is A up top, and I'm just going to put A at the top here and see what that does. Sometimes even just one helps it morph pretty good. And just so you know, if you add more stuff to it, so if I now add, I don't know, a balloon to the side of it and, you know, something up here, so I don't know what I've made now, it will automatically kind of readjust here to morph into that shape instead. And if it doesn't do a good job, so I'm going to try and mess with it here. If I can add something on the bottom, if it doesn't do a good job all of a sudden, which it kind of is, like that's kind of a nice movement, then just again go back to the start here, Control Shift H, and add more shape hints to where you want. If for some reason you can't see your shape hints anymore, then just go up to View and go down to Show Shape Hints. And if you want to get rid of any of your hints, then just right click on one and go Remove Hints, or you can remove all hints. And then just one last thing for shape tweens using shapes. If you try and add something that is way different, so I'm going to insert a blank keyframe here. I'm going to use my brush tool, go over to tool. I'm going to make sure it's black and just turn it up a little bit. And I'm just going to make a very simple stick man here. Not the greatest, but doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put a stick man. You would think that if we put a shape tween in between those, that there'd be some ability, but you can see it's just gonna go absolutely crazy. So if you try and go something completely different, that's not what a shape tween is meant to do. So make sure you keep it very similar between one shape and the next, or it's gonna look stupid. And just so you know, in this case, I added some shape hints to it to see if I could fix it, and just watch. It becomes even worse. It just kind of disappears and then just shows up at the end. Doesn't work at all. All right, now let's take a look at some shape tweens using text or just letters. So I'm going to make a new layer and call this one text. And we're going to make our first keyframe on that one after our last keyframe on our shapes layer. So right here, right click and insert keyframe. On that blank keyframe, I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw a rectangle right in the middle so I can show you what happens when you try to morph a shape into letters. So I'm going to go a second later, right click and insert blank keyframe, and I'm going to go to my type tool, click, and I'm going to spell Sean. So I'm just going to spell my name, click it, and I'm going to move it down to the middle. Now watch, when we try to click between and then right click and create shape tween, you're going to get these little dots here and it's not going to work. It's just going to go from this to that. Didn't work. So undo that. And what you have to do is when you have text It's actually more like a symbol. So what we have to do is right click on it and go down to break apart. So if you have multiple letters like this, then it's going to break each letter apart like that. And then you have to right click again and break apart one more time, and it'll turn each of these into a shape. So when we click in the middle, right click and create Shape Tween, now it will work, kind of. It's going to look like an absolute mess because there's so many different pieces here, and we're just coming from one square here. Something that I didn't show you before, if you click on a keyframe and you go up here to your selection tool and you go to sub selection tool, and then, now click on the keyframe, you're going to see the vertices of that shape. So if we go to this last one here and do the same thing, so go to sub selection and click on this, click on our shape and then click here, we can see that this one has tons of vertices. So going from 4 to this many is going to confuse Animate like crazy. So instead of fixing this, what I'm going to do is just add another blank keyframe right after that one. And I'm going to go back to my type tool and I'm going to spell my name one letter at a time. So I'm going to put S there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to add a keyframe so I can keep the S. But then if I go back to my type tool, I can click in there and change it to an H. I'm going to go to 1 second later, insert another keyframe. This time it's an H. I can double click, change it to an A, and so on. Now, by doing it this way, I still have to right click and break each one of these apart as well. So click on each keyframe and just go break apart. Once you've broken all your letters apart, then just highlight from kind of in between these two keyframes to around here in between these two keyframes, right click and create Shape Tween. That'll put one in between all of these. And if you just watch, it's going to shape tween between each letter and it's going to look bad. Each of them are going to look kind of terrible. So we're going to go back and put some shape hints on here. And we have to be kind of careful. So what I'm going to do is on this first one, Control Shift H, and I'm going to just put them to start. Let's go I'm going to try in the corners out here. So that's going to be my A, 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to put 4 and again just go around the outside. So A, B, C, and D. I'm going to try H here, and D was down here, C was here, B was here, and A was there. Let's see how that turned out. So that one kind of, I don't know, interesting. I don't know why it did that, but it turns out to be okay. I'm going to continue to do this for each letter. I'm going to show you one more, and then I'll just show you the final product at the end. So on this one, I'm going to go Control Shift H to add a brand new one. Actually, I'm going to do all 4. 1, 2, 3 more, and I'm going to put them in the same spot. So actually, I'm going to try D on the inside again right here. I'm going to try C on the inside right there, B up top, and A out there, so that when I go over to the next letter, which is A, I'm going to try and determine these inside corners. I think that's more important for the A right here. So when I watch this, it looks okay. The only bad part is that just kind of the middle pops open really, like right at the very end, just the middle of the A. And I'll show you if I move the C to the outside and the D, for some reason it spins it. It flips it around like that. So if you do have something like that where it goes all crazy, just try 2 more spots, and sometimes to the middle is a little bit safer than to the outside if you have a clear corner like this. Okay, so I'm just going to skip through and do the same thing for the next 2 letters, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the end. Okay, so here we go. This is S, H, A, W, N. Next, I'm going to show you how to apply a mask to your Shape Tweens. Now, it's not really a letter central thing. You can do it with anything else, but I think it looks good with the letters. So what we're going to do is add a new layer, bring it under the text, so it's right here. Then just go to where the name starts, so this second little keyframe right there. Click there, and we're going to insert a keyframe. And then on that keyframe, you're going to go over to your rectangle tool and make sure you go over to Tool over here. And under Fill, this time we're going to pick one of these 2 gradients. Now you can mess with the gradient, but right now we're just going to pick on one. Just pick this one right here. And you're going to make a rectangle that is bigger than your letters. So my letter is pretty small, so I just need a rectangle that covers the whole letter here. And then you're going to go to the final keyframe over here, right click and insert another keyframe. And then in the middle here, you're going to right click and insert a blank keyframe. on that one, you're going to make a rectangle, but this time go to Tool and change it, the fill, change it to the other gradient. So just this one, and then make the box again. Now, when we click and drag through here, so you're covering a little bit here and a little bit on this side of the keyframe, and you right click and we go create shape tween, you're going to see that, don't worry about the letter right now, you're just going to see that the gradients will morph into each other and then morph back. Now, what we need to do is take this text layer, so we got to click on the text layer, not over on a keyframe anywhere, click on the text layer so it's all kind of highlighted like this. We're going to right click and go up here to mask, click mask. Now, when we watch it, you're going to notice that the first bit is going to be missing. So when we went from the rectangle right here to the full name is going to be missing because we don't have the gradient underneath. But first, let's just watch the rest of it here. So you'll see the gradients kind of morphing in the background as the letters are morphing as well. But we have to fix this. So I forgot about this part right here. So just click on this keyframe right here on the mask layer, hold Shift, and then click it again and drag it out to right there. Now the gradient will be applied to everything underneath, and you'll see that it'll show up inside the rectangle now, and when we play it, you'll see it as part of the name and that. This is kind of a bad transition here, so something you might want to do is click on this dot, hold Shift, and bring it back a bit so that at least the full name will hold for a little bit. Maybe even click on this one, hold Shift, and bring it over so that name will hold a little bit longer. So now when we watch, we see that Sean holds and then it switches to the letters and morphs through. And then last but not least, let's take a look at some shape tweens using lines. So I'm going to raise this up so that I can add another layer. I'm going to call this one lines. And once again, I'm going to go to the keyframe that's next in line right here, right after these ones are done. Right click and insert a keyframe right there and then slide over to start on my lines. So on that one, I'll slide this down now as well. So on that one, we're just going to go to our line tool right here, and I'm going to make the size like 5, something like that, and I'm going to make the color, I don't know, just purple, and I'm just going to draw a line straight across. Okay, and then I'm going to go a couple seconds later and insert a keyframe right there, then right click, and I'm going to go create shape tween. Now, since we haven't done anything, there's obviously going to be no movement. But if we click on this second keyframe and just make sure we're on our selection tool over here, and then click away like we did for shape earlier, and then click V on our keyboard, we get that little curvy thing again. So we can curve the line down like this. So now when we watch this, it will play and it'll bend from the straight line to that curvy line. That's easy because it has a starting point, ending point. We're just bending it. Really easy. Go a couple seconds later, insert another keyframe, right click and create shape tween. And then I'm going to click on this last keyframe, click away over here, click V on my keyboard, and then just bend this back up. So that's a simple, you could say it maybe looks like a jump rope. So it's swinging down and then up, or just bobbing down and then up. So that's all fine and dandy when we're working with the same line on a new keyframe and just bending it. But what if we go a couple seconds later, add a blank keyframe this time, and we draw a new line. So I'm going to change the color so we know this one's the green line, and I'm just going to make it kind of a diagonal line like this, and maybe go to the selection tool and bend it this way a little bit already. So now when we right click and create a shape tween in between, you'll see that it does a good job. So it guessed, that this was going to be that same top up there, and it bends it really nice. If it doesn't, well, we know we do the same thing. We click on the first keyframe, you go Control Shift H, and you make sure that you put the A on one end. And if we look at it here, that would be at the end on this last keyframe. You'd put the A at the top and then go back to the start and Control Shift H, put B on the other end here, and then B on the other end of the line right there. So that's just to make sure that you can bend it in the direction that you want. Something else you can do with a line, if we go over here and just insert a keyframe again, and then shape tween it, you can go to the edge here. So if I click away and then I go to the right to the end of the line, like when I'm in the middle here, I can bend it. But when I go to the end, I can now take this and skew it and move it to where I want. And then obviously when we watch it, it's going to kind of bend over to that spot instead. And then the final thing I'm going to show you is how to make more curves on your line. So I'm going to go maybe 3 seconds later this time, and I'm going to insert a keyframe there, right click and create Shape Tween. Now on this one over here, all I'm going to do is go over to my pen tool over here. If you don't see it, then right click, and it might be one of these that you see, or you might have to click on the 3 dots right here, and it might be kind of still over here, and in that case, click it and drag it over to your kind of toolbar over here. So on your pen tool, the first thing you're going to do is right click, and you're going to go over to Add Anchor Point tool instead. So click on that, and I'm going to add an anchor point right there, which will allow me to go to one of these bars here, and I can bend it. So you can see this will bend, and if I go to this handle, I can bend it back. So you want to make kind of a smooth kind of curve like that. I'm going to put one more over here, bend it up like that, and then this one I'm going to bend over like this, so it makes this kind of curvy hill. And now when I watch, you can see it just kind of bends up like that. Oh, and just so you know, if you try to shape tween between a line and a shape, you're going to get some weird funky action that happens. There's going to be this extra kind of line that shows up, and it's not going to work out very well. This was just trying to shape tween between a line and a line that I drew, like with a brush, and it was bad. So if you try and go from a line to a shape or a shape to a line, then it's not going to work out very well. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have for Shape Tweens. So if you got something out of this video, make sure to drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next time.